Joe Diggs is courageous and warm, willing to go with it, and he's willing to take chances.
He's his own man. He's his own person. He paints what comes from his soul, what comes from his heart.
We both like to paint family and have a mixture of abstraction and figuration and thin layers of paint.
Yeah, art found me through life. It just kind of 360s, everything's kind of found its moment, which is incredible.
Joe has worked very diligently over the years to accumulate a fabulous body of work, a body of work that is insightful, has depth to it, has great talent in terms of using the paints and using the brushes and using the materials and layering. There's always some kind of theme going on where he has to express something that is of a personal nature to him. Yeah, he's always had that skill, but he's learned how to monopolize it into something that is very strong in terms of powerful visual impact.
I remember I was at Katuah Center for the Arts, and this must have been like almost 20 years ago now. And I saw a painting and I just fell in love with the painting. It was a huge, giant mural-sized painting about 10 feet wide by about 7 feet tall. And it was a family portrait. And it was like a group of people sitting in front of an old house, maybe sitting on some steps. And it was clearly Joe's family, although I didn't know who Joe Diggs was at the time. But I wanted this painting. It was so luscious and loose and drippy, and the figures were just speaking to me in a way that, like, you know, who wants to buy someone else's family portrait, right? I think that just goes to show how powerful Joe is when he paints, you know, his family especially, and the landscape, and it just evoked memory for me and made me think of my own family in an interesting way.
Joe and I ran a program for teens involved in the juvenile justice system, and we provided arts education for them. I did music and Joe did painting. You know, he's kind of a storyteller. He's a master at color and the light that's produced by color. That's another thing that draws people in. They can see things they recognize, or maybe they don't recognize them, but they can think of things that are connected to themselves. And, you know, Joe had this, you know, incredible way to connect with those guys, you know, through his art and his storytelling. And
that there's a truth that artists can explore and share with us, and I always refer to it as that secret part of us, our spirits, which we don't see. We do live, but we don't know that until you get much older like I am. But Joe is spiritful and open to his truth. I love his talent. I love his soul. I love his heart. I love his willingness. I love his fight. He doesn't hide that he has a past, so to speak, but he doesn't carry grudges. That's very nice too.
My father was in the Army. We traveled, you know, lived in the West Coast. We lived out in Texas. So we traveled, and we moved back here when I was in like 5th grade. I wasn't one of the regular kids. I wasn't, you know, I spoke French, I spoke German. They looked at me like, you know, who are you? And black guy living in Barnstable. You know, there was a whole lot of little weird things going on. So my artwork is truly about my experiences in growing up and trying to figure out how to put these pieces together and make sense out of my being.
When I started doing artwork, I just did it, you know, from myself, from my heart. I was actually trying to do something that my older brother did, as I did everything that he did. So I tried to just be better than him. And then I had a professor who came up to me and said, hey, you know, you're a pretty good basketball player, but you're a much better artist. You should think about this. And that was a key moment. So I got a job as a flight attendant so I could go out and see like all the stuff of the arts. Then after 15 years, I was like, you know what, I want to come back home. I want to run the family businesses. And then unfortunately, they kind of broke up and disbanded. And I said, well, you know what, this is my time. You know, I could either fall apart, or I can get it together and do what you said you wanted to do and follow this. And as soon as I did it, everything started opening up. So here's this figure piece that I'm working on. It's still a long ways from being done, but it's my two cousins. And then this is actually an artist, Tom Marie Dodge. And I took a picture of this. And then this was Thanksgiving. And this was over in Marston's Mills at Liberty Hall. So I don't know, it was something about him being in the darkness, him being dark, and him being white that I was like, I want to play the game of the figures and the colors. And then there was this overall yellow theme over top of red and green. I just said, you know, let's play with this emotionally and see how these things come together. So,
and here you see the emphasis is on the flowering or the growth. And that's what he's about, growing and going through whatever the challenges are.
I actually feel more at home with myself. I feel more at home as an artist than I ever have, because it's a full 360 moment. You know, I've got a chance to do something I never thought I was going to be able to do, and it's a blast.